it's always a quandary that I'm finding for anyone that collects on how to store. And trust me, I've gone through the gamut. I started out with a shoebox. I moved up to Tupperware, you know. Uh, so I'd just like to show you how I've moved through the last 20 years. I started collecting in 2004. Back in 2004, I bought these two storage boxes with 20 trays each because I'm collecting Karl Goetz medals. And if anyone knows anything about Karl, he made a lot of stuff, and you acquire quite quickly, or at least I did. So I stacked them up, had several trays filled up with his medals. But it eventually just became, I mean, it took me 18 months and I was ready to move on. So I found this on eBay. It's an old oak geology cabinet from the University of Illinois. I had it trucked out here to Oregon, figuring that would help me out. And it worked for a while, except I had a problem, deep, thick drawers, but you could only, how do you separate each layer? So I tried particle board that was padded, so forth. It just became a nightmare. So during these years, the Goetz family had contacted me directly from Munich. Florian Goetz, the grandson of Karl, had found me via my website. And we started talking about what was available for purchase on my end. And he mentioned Karl's cabinet. And of course, that piqued my interest. I asked for some photos, and he started by sending me the frontal shot of it. This is all Faubois walnut. It's actually painted onto the substrate wood. The cabinet is full of Goetz had this made for him from several antique pieces, and it was made to contain 102 drawers, both top and bottom combined, and it stands 76 inches tall, it's 19 inches deep, and it's 40 inches wide. We negotiated back and forth for a year before I finally decided I'd purchase it. Each of the trays are 14 by 16 inches. And in both the top and the bottom of this cabinet are from two different eras. But the top being from the late 18th century, and the bottom being to the late 19th century. And evidently Goetz had these paired together and custom built right after he got to Munich and returned to Munich in 1905. Before I closed the deal, I said, are the keys there? Are the missing drawers there? And do I get to keep the certificate? He agreed to all three. I ordered Navtrans to package everything up in Munich for me and fly it to Portland. Yeah, don't even remind me of what the cost was for
So
that.
I was going to say that could not have been cheap.
No, no. The certificate Florian sent separately for me, that was Karl's. He received it posthumously for his silver medal he won in Madrid in 1951. I immediately, upon receiving it, sent it to Joel Oppenheimer in Chicago to have it conserved. Um, and and the cabinet had once it arrived in Portland, I took it directly for conservation, cleaning, and so forth. Um, Now, before you freak out with the heater there, everybody seems to notice the heater more than they do the cabinet. That heater was disconnected long before I put the cabinet in. It was the only wall I had space for this thing. But it arrived at my house in 2008, I believe. Um, and it still sits here behind me on my right, easy access to my work desk. And this is what it looks like all cleaned up. Um, Granted, this isn't the answer for everyone, but in my case, I'm a retired archaeologist, and I'm more interested. Even though I collect his metals, I'm interested in his process pieces, his reduction models, and so forth. And those can get quite large and heavy. So this has been perfect, and a lot of his collection, personal collection, was kept in this, obviously. Uh, the advantage about this just 4 trays is I have plenty of room. I relined all the boxes with the cotton batting, and then velvet over the top of them. But it can also house patterns very easily. Uh, And then some of these process pieces, as you can see, this piece is from 1999 or 1900. It's quite large. It's a reduction piece. Uh, so the trays come in real handy for not just storage, but displays. And here's a monster reduction model that was made for, well, it's a Kinas 105, but it's actually early 1907. But that's a big bruiser, and it's able to hold them. And then here's some process pieces the trays are able to hold too. These are all reduction models for creating the die hubs and dies, and some more examples of it. And then I don't know if it was actually pictured this or stored this way when Goetz was alive, but I store these this way. It's his 1925 anniversary that he made this family set of medals for his wife and their anniversary. Pretty hard to come by in this condition or in its entirety. So it's real handy. And I've still got drawers I can fill in. Now, the only disadvantage to having a big cabinet like this is, so what about a fire? What about a flood? You got your pluses and minuses either way you look at it, but the answer that's helped me for at least the last 15 years is to use this cabinet. And there's the reverses of those medallions. And then one last thing I wanted to know, when the cabinet arrived here in the States and I took it to the conservator, the first place he went to was the bottom drawers on the bottom part of the cabinet, pulled those out and reached back, and he said, this is a trick of all big cabinets or antiques of any kind. And he pulled out this box that even the Goetzes didn't even know. So the little tabs you see with the graph paper, those came off the actual trays from where the metals were stored. But the Pfennig, those are all, latest date is 1950 when Goetz died. But the fact that he had all of these Renaissance models, plaster models, and I haven't had a chance to get in and do much research. And I wanted to show this in hopes that maybe someone, I know there's a couple people here in this meeting that are into the Renaissance pieces, and they might be able to help me determine what they are. But it was certainly a nice bonus. You don't, and there's some wax seals and some interesting works in there. So I'd like to do some more research on this. So if anyone wants to help, contact me at admin@karlgoetz.com.